Thank you very, very much for coming to see the things that we've been doing over the last 3 weeks in October and November. Now, I know there's a few people here who possibly know nothing about how Maria's Care and how going to Uganda all started and how we set up the charity and things. So the first few slides, I'll just talk around how it all started at the beginning. Right, where's my little wazzer? Here we are. Okay, so there we go, Christian Relief Uganda. I'll be honest, when I first went to Uganda, I really hadn't got a clue where it was, and I actually thought it was on the coast, but it isn't, it's here. And so we fly from England, and it takes a day or so, and we stop, depending on what plane we're on, we stop for probably an hour or so, and then we go to Entebbe. And then here we go, Entebbe, Kampala, then we go to Ginger, and then up to Kamuli. And Kampala and Ginger, Kampala's like Manchester or London, and Ginger is a big village. But then we get to Kamuli, and Kamuli is very, very different, really is third world. So those are Kim came after the team had arrived in Uganda, so that's why there's just the 5 of us there. And we stay, just for people who are thinking about coming, we stay in a posh mud hut, and it's very nice, and that's Entebbe. And this is where we're working. Now, I always say to the young kids at school, this isn't 200 years ago. This is now. This is how they are living. And some children go to school, some don't, and some live in mud huts, and some live in bigger mud huts, but they live in mud huts. And this is how it really started. I met Maria Moore in 1991, the lady in the pink, and then I went out there, and these people here, the Madvanis, they gave that land with these tumbled down warehouses to Maria and said, you know, she signed over for them, and we took those on. Now, Maria is a great visionary, and she knew that she could see how it was going to go, but you can see there, not a tree in sight. And it's very different now. And so over the years we've been fundraising, and you'll see as we progress just how it has transformed. And this is what it's looking like today. Now, part of this presentation is to tell you what the money was spent on the last trip. And if we raise money for the food, the education, and mainly that really, their clothes, then Wellington boots is an added extra. So when you meet the cooks and they're saying, oh, madame, we need this, we need that, we need the other, then we have a little chat and we say, look, shall we get these boots? And we work out what we should do with the money. And that's exactly what happened here.
So my job was to build the ramps. So I laid 3 bricks and that was it. And then the guys who were actually doing it thought I'd done a reasonable job, patted me on the back, and that was the end of me. So you can see the first photograph shows the guy that was organising it, and there were 3 of them, and they built about, I think probably about 10 ramps, and that's to get the wheelchair access sorted out. And that was a great step forward for them, really. So the second photograph shows the same ramp in construction, and the third photograph shows the same ramp completed. So I did about 3 bricks out of a lot.
But the reason we've shown you this is because when they said they needed money for ramps, I hadn't a clue what they were talking about. And then you realise they have to get cement and bricks and labour, and this is why it costs. At the back, there's a whole sheet of all the costings of the different things that we use the money on in October, November. And these were some other ramps, so people can get about the compound. And here we are, we had money to use for painting, and I knew that over there the paint brushes and, the trays are non-existent. And so with some of the money we bought things from here and took them over there, and the gloves as well, and they were absolutely delighted with them. And you can see things were in disrepair, and then things look much better. Now, I've had to reduce about 500 photographs to just these few, otherwise you'd have been here till midnight. So we have a lot of photographs that show all the different areas, and I'm sure between you, you've got lots of pictures of showing the painting that we did. And this is a long wall that was painted, but equally we were given some money. Well, go on.
So a lovely lady from our church called Margaret, and I won't point out where she's sitting, donated a lovely sum of money. So the idea was to build a prayer garden, somewhere to go that was quiet and peaceful, and perhaps a little bit out of the sun. So there was a little bit of shade there. You can't see the trees to the left of my bottom, but anyway. So we constructed a wiggly path going through, and when we're in Ginger, we bought lots of plants, and that's them going in. So hopefully, in a couple of years' time, that'll have all filled in. But that was a really nice project.
The other thing is that every trip is different. We put an itinerary together, and then it changes when we're out there, because lots of things come along that we've never planned, and so we have to be flexible. So our middle name is Flexibility. And here's the team that Jeff was working with, and the lady on the left is called Susan. And they got on and did things. The chappie here is the deputy head, Fred, and then these two came to help as well. And then Butterbalaland, over there.
Hi Margaret, we have spent your money wisely on the things you love most. Here's a jacaranda.
This is really funny.
Going into position. All
There
love
it
to
is,
you.
that teeny little tree will one day be a jacaranda, and we had quite a few of those, didn't we?
We went to the Butterbala land to see what was already growing there, and things had come on really well in parts. We had already been to a market and bought lots of new things to plant, which we got on and did. And the soil is wonderful, really. It doesn't show there, but it's almost orange, really, and very fertile.
But it was very hard as well, wasn't it? Because you really tried.
Yeah, when it's dry, it's really hard, and it really had to be broken up. So a bit like Jeff and his 3 bricks, I had the hoe taken off me at one point, so I could dig a bit harder. But it was just wonderful to see what had already grown and what we could do and add to it. It's wonderful land.
Could you play that video again, please? You really tried hard. And then the gentleman bringing the other jacaranda over is our headmaster, Jan.
Some people knew just how to plant.
Now, as you can read, these were planted last year. And so it's always good to show people, because often with charities you don't get to see what's happened. And so for us, if we'd done things, we're able to show you the growth that's taken place. Now, there was an open day, and it was for students who were going to be taking exams, and the parents came and they did picnics. And this little one here, this is so good to see that she was cleaning her shoes, but her shoes weren't perfect. They were worn, the fronts were worn, the heels were worn, but she loved those shoes, and she was cleaning away. And, everything is precious to these little ones. And the Guardian here has brought this picnic, and they were all sitting round eating. And then these were the children from Primary 7. Do you want to?
So the parents of the Primary 7 gathered together because they are going to be moving up now to high school. And they had a time where all the parents prayed for the children, and then all the children prayed as well. And those prayers were so fervent. They were really communicating there. And so that was really good to see all the parents there as well. We haven't been there on a Parents' Day before, have we?
Now, this is all about sugar. We give bags of sugar out to the staff because it's a real treat. And if I gave you a bag of sugar, you'd go, right, Ro, what's all this about? But we worked out, didn't we, that the equivalent...
Looking at the average wage that they got, and then comparing it with an average wage in the UK, giving somebody a bag of sugar is like the value of £30 to them.
And here they are. Now these are grown-up teachers who are thrilled with their bag of sugar. No, we brought them out there.
The sugar was actually from there are sugar refineries nearby, and we had visited one, was it the previous year, in Ginger, and it's the Kikira sugar refinery, which is owned by the Madvani family. And there is one nearer that makes more local sugar, but that was actually Kikira sugar that we were giving them.
And again, this was taken out of donations. We weigh up what we should be using the donations for, and that was one of the things. Julie?
Okay, so this is Ivan. Ivan's the music teacher, and he's an excellent music teacher, and he has got the school to national standard, and they have been recognised for what they do, particularly with the choir. When I say choir, it's not just singing, they're dancing, they're drumming, and they've been noticed. He's been sponsored to do some extra music training. He's particularly really good with the indigenous instruments, and he makes them as well. But he was at his college, and he contacted me and said, I need to learn another instrument. We'd given him a violin. The reason we'd given him a violin was because he made an instrument that was a little bit like a violin, but it had one string, but you used the bow across. And I thought, I bet he could pick up the violin. So we gave him a violin. In no time, within hours, he was playing it. So anyway, he said, at my college, they said I have to take up a second instrument, a different instrument, and they suggested the saxophone. So I thought, oh my goodness, they're expensive. And then it just so happened that one came up on Facebook Marketplace that was a lot reduced. So I managed to get that, and we took it out for him. And again, he, put it in his hands, and he's well away. He picks it up really quickly. But that will all be passed on to the students as well, because he has an idea. He wants to develop a jazz band in the school.
Fire extinguishers. At the beginning of last year, we had the education people come round, and they told us we had to put the ramps, which we've done now, but fire extinguishers was something else. And so again, with the money that was donated from many people, we were able to get 4. These are the pictures of the 3 of them. In place, which is good. But to think that way out, in Kamuli, in this little school, they're really keen on the right things. And so they're there. Now, a lot of people gave us bras. Now, as ladies know, we can just go along to the shops and get a bra. But out there, they have everything that's brought in that's just so, well. So lots of people around here have given us bags and bags and bags of bras, and we're able to give them to teachers, people out in the villages, and they are so thrilled. And in actual fact, we have to say to them, look, you can only have 2, because they take 3, 4, 5, 6, and one for the, their family and extended family. But it's just to tell you how grateful they are for the bras. Now, this was a real story and a half.
We heard that the local council had been in touch with the school, and they said, the playground, the area you're using, belongs to the council. Now, they've been playing on that ground for how long? 20-something years. And so that cropped up, that we found out it wasn't officially the school's playground. But they said the council is changing over next year, so we want to sort things out. And those who are in position now, we want to offer you the first opportunity to buy this land, but there are other people who want it as well. Now, the thing is, in Uganda, if a school doesn't have a playground, they close. So it was a bigger problem than just the playground. So we had to try and get this money together.
Yeah, we did. And the 2 of us, I shared a room with Julian. Each day we were thinking, what are we going to do? Because we have been given money, but there are lots of things that this money could be spent on. And then we said, look, I wonder if they'll take a deposit. And they did. They agreed to take us deposit. So there we were, paid the deposit, signed everything, took photographs, and that was all sorted. But we knew we needed more money. And so we got on with things. And then I'll sort of go right to the last day. A friend sent a message saying to me, I've done well in business and I've got £2,000 for any project that you might need it for. Well, I said to this lot at breakfast, do you want the good news or the good news? I said, the good news is that this money's coming in and we don't have to worry now. We'll be able to secure this land. And so it was, and that was the last day. So it was just wonderful, because it's like anything. Any book you read page by page, but we're giving you the whole story and the whole picture all at once. So living with us through those 3 weeks to suddenly get to that last day when this came up was absolutely fantastic. So we were thrilled. Now it's just a matter of the land title, isn't it? So these things just happen out in Uganda, and it's wonderful.
There are some projects that have started up at Maria's Care, because we like to offer vocational training there as well, particularly for the deaf pupils, because they don't do so well academically. So to be able to get a job for them is harder. But to have a skill, something that they can do to earn money, like to be able to sew, then all they would need is a sewing machine, and they're set up, because you often see the machinist sitting along the side of the road and people just take the material and they measure them and make something for them. So we got some money together and we got the sewing machines. So they got some treadle sewing machines, which is what they'll use out in the street. But to help with the quickness of making things, we've got 2 or 3 electric sewing machines that we took out there. And Helen, I wonder if Helen might tell us about this, because this was really your project.
I've sewn for quite a long time, but had a little gap of about 20 years while I was looking after children. And I decided when I was there the year before, this was something that the deaf children could do. So when we went, not last year, but the year before, we had these sewing machines which had been donated. And Julie and I went to the market. We bought lots and lots of fabric. And then I had the deaf children in a room with all the sewing machines, and basically I taught them how to sew. It was a slow process, but it was a really rewarding process, because at the end of it, we only had about 4 days to do it. In 4 days, we got someone to make a whole dress, a shift dress. We also taught some of them how to repair their school uniform, because obviously they don't have the funds to buy new school uniforms. So if we can show them the skills, they were absolutely fascinated by the electric machines and how quick they were. And I had to stop them putting their foot right down on the pedal. But it was a really good start, and I'm really glad that they're carrying it on. I have now had some more sewing machines donated to me, so I'm hoping that when I go next year, I'll be able to take some of those with us. So, yes.
So another project that was started up just this year, the carpentry. We have a carpenter called Stephen. He's in that far picture in the background. Stephen's been there for many years. He's probably in his late 60s, is he? So he's been working with all the children in small groups, and it's a bit like working with your granddad. And they really enjoyed doing it. And when I went to have a look what they were doing, he'd got a blackboard there, and he'd written up all the key words that they'd need to know and the names of joints, and he'd shown them all different joints to do. And he's really done a good job. So they'd made trays. They'd made looms, so they're going to start doing some weaving on those. They made something they call mingling sticks, which are wooden spoons that they can mingle things with, and then key fobs as well. All these things that they're doing. What's in that one? Is that those are some of the joints that they'd made. But all these things that they're doing, when we have our 25th anniversary next year, we're hoping to do a big celebration with music and dance, but also we could have a fashion show with what they'd made and display some of the things that they'd made. And all of that helps to lift the profile of the school in the community.
The Clayton Suite. Susan Clayton's been coming for many, many years, and over the years she's focused just on IT. And so she's raised the money over in Wales, and she really has worked on her own because she was passionate about this and got this whole suite together. And as she'd say, it was with the help of other people from her church. But Julie had this great idea that as she'd been so passionate for the years, that we'd get this plaque. And you actually had it made on Welsh slate.
It was Welsh slate because she's Welsh.
Yeah, so we called her over and asked her to unveil this plaque. And it was so high up. And I made the little curtain, so she had the red curtain to take off. But we had a lovely time, and she has done really, really well.
So now the ICT suite is called the Clayton Suite.
Yeah, we don't tend to tell the world and his wife about it because we don't want anybody to come in and start trying to get at all the laptops. There's a lot of them. Yeah, there she is sitting with the pupils and the teacher. Now this is a different story altogether. It's the children eating. And we raise the money for the children to have a meal a day. And many of them come with empty stomachs. And this is often the only meal they have. And so this is them queuing up. They bring their own plates and they wash their own plates. Little cheeky faces. That porridge is so hot that they get another cup and go from one to the other to cool it down. Now there's been times over the years where they've had no tables because the termites have eaten them, and we've got photographs of that just empty. But time and time again we raise the money to be able to put those, to have the tables built. And so they've got tables at the moment. And this is a great big container full of water where they have a quick drink and they wash their plates and they actually put the water all over them because it's hot. This little video will show you. He didn't know I'd crept up on him. I don't think we have to do that in England. Somebody washes our plates for us at school. Everything is precious to them. And often when we take things out to Uganda and we empty a container of any sort, there's always somebody around to say, could I have that please, could I have that? Because they'll use as much as they can. Whatever we discard, they'll use. These children we've watched grow up for a long, long time, and they're deaf. But after a period of time, they learn to read the blackboard, they learn their ABC, they're all taught in English. The whole of Uganda learn English, as well as their own tribal language or village language. And here they are now, and they've been integrated into the class with the primary 7 children. And it's been a joy to watch them grow up, and they're doing really well. And you see, without our money, they would be digging in the field. This is very sad, and this is happening all the time, and anybody who comes to Uganda will see the children going down and getting water and then taking it home and boiling it. And that's why, we are so blessed here to be able to have water on a tap and electricity when we switch a light on.
Look on the right at the little boy with the little jerry cans. Everybody does their bit.
Yeah. The next one, I hope, is a video of him carrying, and his T-shirt, his vest was on down around his body, wasn't it? Down around his bottom.
If you look at the guy who's got 2 little jerry cans there, so we were walking behind him, and I grabbed the jerry cans off him to help him, and I thought, oh, that's really good of me, and then we carried on a bit, and I walked past the house where he lived and carried on walking. And he got really upset, and then he sort of dragged me back. And I realised that I'd taken him too far. But it's sad to see that in a way. But I suppose he's he's helping out from a very young age, which is good.
I was going to bring a jerry can to show you how heavy they are. They are heavy. And that little fella's under 5. And he was struggling like mad.
And also the vest that he's wearing, that could be the only item of clothing that he possesses. And some have none in the villages. You see some children with no clothes because they just haven't got them.
And sometimes you'll see a little boy, but it's a little girl because they've had to put a dress on. It's, first up, best dressed. And if this little fella, there's a dress there and he puts it on, that's because it's clothes, and it's better that he has that on than none. This should show you, because they were going up the hill here, and this little one suddenly appears, struggling like mad. Look at that. But I'm going to get there. Such determination. Yeah. And then Kamuli Hospital, we always go in there. We take things. We usually go to the maternity, but it depends what the team want to do. And if we've got doctors or nurses or whoever's on the team, we adjust the program. And so we take in-date medical supplies. And here we are. Last year we had a load of midwives who came, and they actually worked in this hospital. And they had to tick boxes because they were doing their elective. And I'm pleased to say they've all passed, and they're all midwives now.
We had some really good donations. There was a baby respirator and a nebulizer, and we took those to the stores. We were directed there before we went for a look around the hospital, and I was able to show them the man there how to use it, and they were very happy with what we took. We filled some gaps on the half-empty shelves.
Yeah, we did. Yes, there was a lot considering that it's a huge hospital. The shelves are half empty. And lots of people knit, and they just come round and say, I've got a bag of jumpers, or I've got a bag of blankets, whatever. So I've got 12 banana boxes I'm sharing with people who are going in August, who can help to distribute some of these lovely jumpers and teddy bears. And it's like Christmas, because we go into the ward, and of course the mums that have just had their babies weren't expecting us, and we suddenly appear, and then we say, oh, we've got these, and we go round, and everybody goes round, and we give them all the different garments that we have to help these babies. Now, Jeff, you wanted to find out more about the children in the villages, didn't you?
One of my daughter-in-laws teaches out in Singapore. And she decided to do a project when I sent her some photographs on sort of how you get water in a country like Uganda. So the kids in Singapore are quite privileged, and obviously they turn a tap and get water, etc. So she did a project with them and showed them a number of pictures of like little boy carrying the 2 water containers. And showing how, the kids washing their plates and cups from a tank of water. And obviously quite different from what we're used to, and certainly what they're used to in Singapore. So that was quite nice for the kids to actually see, some reality of what happens in Africa.
But it just shows, and they've probably had a bowl of rice. They're doing all this hard work on very little food in their stomachs. And we went to this village, and this is inside their little mud hut. And here we are distributing gifts that have been given to us. Anne did a very good job there. It's very humbling when you do this sort of thing. And then when you're driving along, you come across all sorts of different sites, and that just happened to be all of these guys on their truck. And very sadly, those who knew Patrick, he's died, and we went to see them, and that's where he's buried. But he was a lovely, lovely man, and we learned how to do the bark cloth there. And we still go on a Thursday, so nobody's going to miss out, because thankfully he passed the art on to his son. So, and I think, Julie, both of you had yeah.
I know how to do it too.
Yeah. Now, these are the success stories, because I think, you see what's gone on, and now we're 23 years on, And some of these youngsters were sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 when we first went out there, and they're in their late 20s, early 30s. And this is one of them. And we said, oh, hello, Edward, what are you doing now? So he told us he set this restaurant up called 12 Bones Takeaway. 12 Bones Takeaway. And then he explained that the 12 bones were from the goats. Yeah, the ribs of the goats. And so it's 12 bones. And the food, I might tell you, is delicious. Absolutely lovely.
We have quite a lot of children who are sponsored, a lot by people in the UK, and there's a few people outside the UK sponsor. This one is Oliver. So she's one of the deaf children, and she lives way out in the village. We went to visit her this year, and Helen is actually Oliver's sponsor. And Oliver has come to, we found that she's about 16 years old and they don't feel that she can learn anymore, so she needs to go to a vocational college, but still under the banner of Maria's Care. So she will still receive her sponsorship until she finishes her training. So she's got 2 years of training, and she wants to be a seamstress, a dressmaker, that's right. Yes, and then we have little Miriam here on the other one with spina bifida. So we came across Miriam, was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago. And she has crutches, these little tiny crutches, and she pulls herself round. Now, Miriam had an operation to see if it would improve her walking, but unfortunately in the operation, the nerves were severed, and so she now has, she will be incontinent all her life, and she doesn't have the feelings. So we had a couple of people there, married couple with us, and they said, we'd like to sponsor her. So, because it's also a very big cost for her mother, because she needs to get Pampers all the time. And also they had a little bike made for her, and she loved it, so she could get herself round on this bike. And then so it was 2 years ago when she first came, and then when we went this year, you realise how she's blossomed, and she can hold her own. She's so tough.
And when we talk about the bike, of course her legs don't work. The bike you use with your hands. I think the next one is a video of Helen speaking.
Hello, Helen. They have told me you are a grandmother now. I thank God for that. That I'm in a village this side. I'm happy, and greetings to all the people there. I'm very happy.
And as you can tell, there's one very happy young lady, because we know she'd just be in the village digging if she didn't have education and this opportunity.
If there is anybody who would be interested in sponsoring a child, please do speak to me today.
Now, you know, when you start a charity, you never even envisage this sort of thing happening. And now we've had so many youngsters have been educated and have graduated. And then the others who don't go through university, they've done practical things, like you said. So we always try and give every child an opportunity to blossom and flourish. And this is a lovely story. These girls, the twins, we had them when they were very small, and now they've grown up and have done so well. And this was just a few weeks ago, just before Christmas.
I first met the girls 6 years ago, I think, when we first go out to Uganda. We meet in Kampala, and everybody gets together with the older students that have left Maria's Care. And the idea of that really is to show us all that the education at Maria's Care works. The teachers, they're very dedicated, they're very committed to what they're doing. And actually, my experience of teaching in the UK versus what I've witnessed and seen in Uganda is very different, because teachers in Uganda own the whole child. So they educate and care about the child in every capacity, whether they've got the ability to learn, whether they're deaf or hearing capable. It's quite something to experience. The fact that although it is such a deprived country, that children still do flourish. And there are just some amazing success stories. And we were invited to go to the wedding in place of Rona, because she wasn't there at that point in time. And we sat at the top table, and the grandparents were very, very grateful to all of us. And we had a big party, and it's what weddings are like in Uganda. It's a huge celebration of two people coming together forever. And they value those things, and it's just wonderful to experience. And the grandparents couldn't say thank you enough. And the people that sponsored the girls and anybody else in the UK that sponsors children in Uganda, I don't think you could fully appreciate exactly the value of what you do. If you just do it temporarily or a small donation, anything that you do. But if you can sponsor and share in the life of one single child out there, you've made a difference.
There they are, sitting with the grandmothers and the parents there.
Yeah.
And then this is just a few of the children. This was Moses, I remember, because I used to have a camera with a film in. Those people who remember that. So I was taking photos of them when they were very small, and some of the children I showed pictures to and said, "Who's this?" And they didn't know. They didn't know, because in that village in those days there was no mirrors, so I'd know what you look like and you know what I look like, but when I'd show you a picture and said, "Who's that?" they didn't know it was them. But we've watched Moses, and he's grown up, lovely young man, and like you were saying, each year when we go out we usually gather as many as we can in Kampala and say hello to them all, and they love it because they have a little reunion themselves. And so this is the work that he was doing, and he's ever grateful for what we've done to help and support him. And again, brilliant brains, and they just need that opportunity. And then there they are. They got married, and there's that little one. And this is when the six of us came together, because as I was saying, Kim came a bit later, and so there we all were together before they went. Three went that way, and the three of us went the other way. And now I was going to put another picture on here, but I didn't get this picture. Now, do you want to talk about being in the hospital?
In Uganda, white people are quite rare, as you might imagine, and we're called Mzungus. So sometimes if an African baby encounters you and you want to hold on to them and have a cuddle, they have an absolutely wailing, screaming fit because they can't understand or comprehend what's happening because they haven't encountered white people before. So it's a bit of a standing joke, really, that every time I hold a baby out in Uganda, you can do it. They don't scream for you, but I hold babies out in Uganda and they scream. Well, this time we actually found a baby that didn't scream. So it was, get the picture quick. But the reason we were there was because we were sort of holding vigil in the hospital for a boy who had tetanus called Simon Peter. And he had tetanus injections, but obviously something had gone wrong. And this poor child, he was fitting every few minutes. His temperature was raised. We were told we couldn't touch him because his skin was so bruised and he was so delicate and it was painful to him. And luckily we got Jeff with us, who gave lots of advice, and we were on the phone because she'd already left. But we were at the hospital And Jeff was telling us people at the hospitals don't necessarily operate how we would in the UK. So there were notes at the bottom of the bed, for example, and they were using stones underneath the bed to count how often he was fitting. But we did encounter a gentleman called Elvis, who Anne befriended on the way home, and she kept his number, and he'd gone back to Ginger, and Ginger Hospital was the only place where the medication could be obtained. So he travelled back after dropping us off at Maria's Care, and he needed to go, and we did a money transfer so that we could buy the drugs that were needed to save this boy's life. So they're obviously, the family are very grateful for what we did there.
So basically, it was a bit of a rush against time, and the hospital had felt that it wasn't probably unlikely that he was going to survive. There was certain drugs that he needed. They didn't have them in the hospital. By ringing round, we found a pharmacy with them, so Elvis went and got them, and then he got back in less than the time he should have done, so he was very quick, got them to him, and then when they gave them to him, we kept checking on him. The following day, there was no difference. The day after, we got the message, he's going to live. And then he responded to the drugs. He was in the hospital for a month. Now, what happened then, we had a message to say that on the day they were going to discharge him, the staff heard that there was an English doctor visiting the hospital. Now, it just so happened, a God incident, that this doctor was the person who had given the money for this ward that the boy was in to be built, as well as the maternity ward. And so they sent for him, and he came with a couple of his team, and they said, come and see a miracle. And they told him what had happened with the boy, and we were going to pay for the rest. You know, we paid for the medication, but there was all the time that he was in the hospital, and then there would be when he goes home, and certain foods he'd need to build up his strength. So we had said we would do that. Anyway, the doctor said he was going to pay for all the medical costs at the hospital, so that was covered, and that was just amazing that he was there on that day. Can I just ask, is the next one after this? Right. Okay, because that money was now not needed from us to support him when he gets home and to pay for those medical fees, we went to an event. We took the deaf children from the school to an evening event locally. And on the stage, so they had things going on the stage. It was a Christian event, and they had lights, and occasionally these lights would flash out into the audience. And I noticed, you see the little boy at the front with that one there? And I noticed that when the light shone into his eyes, one of his eyes looked white. But when it didn't, you couldn't really notice. Now, with that eye, he was always like this. And he'd had problems. They said when he came to the school, he had some eye problems. Anyway, I asked Jeff to have a look, and he shone the torch in his eye, and he said it's probably a cataract. So we took some photos, and then when we were in Ginger at the hospital, we went into the eye department and showed somebody, and they said, yes, a cataract. So this little boy is about 7, and they said it could be operated on. So the money that was not used for the other boy could then be used for this boy to have a cataract operation, which he's had now. Now, in having that cataract operation, they looked at the other one and said the other one needs operating as well. So we said, just do one for now, because if he loses both, he's already deaf, he can't speak because he's never heard anybody speak, so he just grunts and pulls at you. So if he loses his sight completely, that's going to be really bad. So just do one for now. Anyway, it's been successful, so he will have the second done at some point. But while he was there, and they had to give him an anaesthetic as well, but they discovered in doing that, he's got heart problems. So that's another issue. But none of those things would have happened had that doctor not have paid that money that released our money for him to go and have that done. So God is at work.
And as you can see, these are things we can't plan before we leave. And the rippling effects from one to the other, we found this over all the years, that every time when we come back, we've got stories to tell that we could never have planned. And as I say, this is why we have to be flexible. Now, this was the other one, that the wall was falling down due to this side here, people were building, so the foundations you found underneath were crumbling, which made the wall bend, and we needed this money. And I happened to say to various people about it, and miraculously we managed to raise £3,047. Now, I was hoping to say, oh, and here's a picture of it all done, but it isn't, because the children come back on the 3rd of Feb, and I thought, well, what an opportunity. They could have done it whilst they weren't there. But they want to, the head and the deputy want to oversee everything. And, you know, over the years, many years ago, people were telling me how bags of cement disappeared and bricks disappeared and this, that and the other. So Fred and Dan want to be there to make sure that it's done properly. So there's going to be a stage when we'll be able to tell you in a newsletter, which I'm going to do next week, and hopefully show you a picture of before and after the wall. And really, this is just coming to the end now. This little one was at church, wasn't she, Anne? Lovely little one. And then this is in the village. And just saying to you, if there's anybody here who wants to talk about going to Uganda, they can have a chat with any of us here. At the back of the room, there's some paperwork and a map and some books that you can take away talking about Uganda, and forms to fill in if you want to, if you're serious about coming. Just to really bring us back to, this is how it is, and these are the children that we're supporting. And every one of them deserves education. Bye. And turn it up. Bye. Thank you. This is in the village. We've been distributing things, and they were all very, very grateful. Some of them with their new jumpers and new dresses on. So, Waverley, and thank you. And if you'd like to know any more, please do pick up a leaflet. So really that's the end of the presentation up there, but I'm just going to say to any of them here, if there's anything, you know, at the very beginning when you said you were thinking of coming to Uganda and you had this big blank screen, what's Uganda like? It's all right when you've been a few times, you know what you're going to. But there's people here who are sitting there like you were, Jeff, last year with this blank screen. So is there anybody who'd like to say something about the blank screen and going and seeing and how it is now?
I think I expected what I'd seen on television and in programmes and that kind of thing. And then when we got there, it was after Banana Village, travelling from Banana Village onto Kampala. And all the time Rona was saying, look at that, look at that, look at that. And you was, it was the kind of things you see, like you see a big, not a big, like a haystack, but grass, long grass. A big mound on a bike travelling along, and there's a man inside. And it's just those kind of things, and the things that we're not allowed to do in this country, they do there. They've got such freedom.
It is, I agree with you. The children queue up to get a balloon. They were so thrilled, and sometimes you say, I'm sure I've seen you before. Open your mouth. And they open their mouth and there's a balloon inside. Or else they've got this hand like this and they put their hand out and you go, let me see your other hand, and you're like that, and there's a balloon there. And they want to take the balloon to their brothers or sisters. So lots of things like that happen.
Yeah, I think the other thing is the openness of the people. What they say is what they mean. There's no hidden agenda. Yeah.
It was so nice that we were able to move so freely around and feel safe. When we did go out to see Olive's family in a remote village, we didn't feel so safe, and yet it was a bit of an adventure because it went dark, and so we had to drive back as soon as we could. The weather was very bad. The roads were flooded. There was one road looked like it was a ford. It was like a river flowing across where we needed to drive. And a young boy and his friend walked through the water to show our driver which way to go, so we didn't go over into one of the fields. And we had such adventures, and we were enabled by people who donated money to make a heck of a difference in so many areas. It was wonderful. And the memories you hold of Uganda, I don't think I'm only speaking for myself. Yeah, we've got them up here, but actually they're here. And that school is a part of the people we know and love to get together with again. They're like our family. They're like our extended family. It's wonderful to be able to do what we do, and thank you.
And I must say that we laugh. We laugh a lot out there. I mean, I know we chuckle here, but we laugh from down here because the misunderstandings that happen, and then you say, no, it wasn't that, it was this, and then they say something, and it's all, and we end up laughing, don't we? There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of tears as well, and it doesn't matter how long I've been going, 23 years, I can say to the team, all of a sudden, whoa, this is one of those moments, and I have to turn away and walk away for a minute because the tears will just trip me because you see a situation that you weren't expecting to see, and it hits your heart. It's called compassion, and that happens nearly every time that we go. Is there anything anybody wants to say before we draw this to an end?
So my job was to look after 5 ladies while we were in Uganda, and I actually survived, so that must be a good recommendation.
Yeah. And the other thing is it isn't all about Kamuli. There are things that we thread through, like we go to a show, or people can go on safari. There are or on the Nile, and you can have afternoon tea. So there are the nice things and the time that you take out and you sit round and you discuss what you've been doing in the day. Because if I'm over there doing something, I don't know what they're doing over there. So at the end of the night, it's really good to come together and share, what's been going on. We have this school perspective, which is at the back. If anybody's really, really interested, they can have a look at that. And there's leaflets. And again, if anybody wants to have a bit more information, there's a sheet of paper there with your name and contact details, and I can get in touch with you. But there's absolutely no pressure. We never, ever put pressure on people. If people want to come, and they have over the years, and they sign up and they come, and we can organise everything. And that's our role, really, to take you there, to observe and see, and then decide what you want to do with what you've seen out there. So I think thank you very much. Thank you very, very much indeed for coming and supporting Christian Relief Uganda. Thank you.